Happy Tuesday, everybody. Rodney, how are you? Happy Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
It is. I was looking something up as we were. Here we go. Yeah, I was. My name is Andy Elliott. I'm a real estate agent, realtor here in Williamson County, Tennessee, and I'm with Rodney Wilds, my best buddy, also in Williamson County with First Trust Lending. He's a big deal up there, and that's what we do. We work in this area, and as we go through the show, we'll talk about in general real estate stuff like there. We've actually got an article that kind of highlights our hometown here area, which is cool. We don't often do that. But if you're in the market for real estate, you've been asking questions or needed questions answered, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, carrier pigeon, however you can get to us. So we'd love to talk to you no matter where you're from. So tell me about golf. Did you golf?
I didn't golf, but my junior in high school did. He played pretty well. He had a nice tournament finish in Chattanooga, Tennessee, just outside of Chattanooga. Finished ninth in a big event for him. We had a lot of fun.
Oh man, ninth. That's a big deal.
Yeah, he was. Didn't have a great first day. Shot 75, 3 over the first day, but come back with a 4 under the second day. Finished -1 for the tournament. So I was proud of the comeback. He finished nicely. So
isn't that the name of the game? Being able to be able to finish strong. I mean, in the face of adversity. And I'm watching the. Do you happen to watch basketball? Sorry, this isn't real estate question. Do you watch basketball at all?
yes, I watch some of. I watch when as the playoffs get deeper. I watch more and more.
That's precisely me. And I'm from. I've said it 1,000 times. From Colorado. I'm a Colorado guy. And the Nuggets, of course, they were champions last year, and they're in it this year. And so far in this second round, they lost the first 2 games, but these guys they're always coming from behind. They just don't quit. And
I think they tied it up, didn't it? In their series, is their series?
They did. Yes,
yeah,
sir, they
nice.
did. Yes, sir, they did.
Nice.
I mean, and they got smoked the second. I mean, wow, they were just like, they were looking bad that second game. Anyway, enough of that. So, real estate. Let's talk about a little bit of that. But first, as we always do, we're going to start with a little something we call Rodney's rates. All right, here it comes with the PIP. PIP means
All
picture,
right.
picture. Bing.
Here we go. This is what I wanted to see today. Our last looks like our last several days here is just bouncing around, bouncing up and down against this. I don't know what moving day average. I can't tell what color that is. It looks like maybe the 3-day moving average or something, but it's bouncing off against this line right here, just barely peaking above today. So kind of weird, isn't it? It's for a couple weeks it went, bouncing off this line. It broke through the ceiling, and now it's doing the same thing there. So looks like it's trending, trying to get better. And as it breaks through these, what I call ceilings of resistance, it looks like it stayed above this first ceiling there, and then it's trying to break through and stay above the second ceiling.
And I know for anybody that ever watched our show, I've been saying this for a couple of years, but this is a reverse graph of what you would expect on the interest rates. So when that's down, things are up, and when that's up, things are down in the real world. So
yeah, the green going up means the rates for the consumer are getting better.
Angie, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Our girl's here.
What's up, Ange?
California, here we come. Yeah. Hit me. Sorry about that, Rodney.
No, that's it. That was it. It's just I was like, how do you characterize this right here? It's kind of weird, but once it broke through the ceiling of resistance, it looks like we're battling here, and hopefully may break through another. But it looks like it's trying to improve to me.
It does, and it's I think one of the things that we've been talking about, and that seems to be showing it, is stability. I mean, duration and stability. I mean, that is kind of these days. It's about everything. Rates are important, but duration and stability is equally so. I would have to think, wouldn't you?
Yes, I mean it's have a lot of purchase going on in an interest in a rising rate environment.
Yeah. And are you seeing? Would now you would know this? It's being in the industry and all. Are refis? Is that non-existent, or is it slow, or is it? I mean, where is that in the world of finance
Yeah,
these days?
I don't want to say non-existent, but it's few and far between. It
Hmm.
is very very seldom. Um, we're going to look at. We had a refi. Somebody that we talked to about a refi that we thought it might be good. They had a lot of debt uh, outside of the mortgage, which was at 15 and 20%, and then their mortgage rate I think was in the sixes as well. So
Hmm.
at that time, if you're going to pay off some 15 and 20% rates, um, and it makes enough sense, we offered them a lower term and a decent fixed rate, and would help that situation. But those are few and far between right now. I mean, refinancing. Is just not, the rates aren't there for people to refinance for a lower payment.
Would you call that? I don't know how to characterize it. Don't know that I need to. But would that be? Would you consider that like an extreme example of? I mean, that's just a product that worked and the timing was right in that particular situation. Is that
Right.
the way?
Yeah. Typically people refinance to lower their rate, you
Yes,
know, or combine and pull out money. Um, so when the rates are what they are, it just doesn't make sense for the majority of people to refinance right
got it.
now.
Yeah.
But like I said, there are some cases and then there's divorce situations. You can stuff like that.
Hmm.
But typically, the normal refinance market to lower your rate is not existent.
Yeah. The it's interesting that you would mention the divorce situation, and it's not to characterize that particular situation, but of all the people that are moving, that the real estate sales that are taking place, things that are being done, I would have to say the lion's share of it is because people. It's for people that I don't want to say have to, but they're almost forced into moving. I mean, if it's job changes or divorces or downsizing, I mean, somebody's got a 4,000 square foot house and everybody's gone. That would only be, they're gonna get their proceeds and move on with their retirement life if that's the case. And what we're missing these days seems like is a lot what I would call elective moving. Hey, let's just move. That's the way it
Yeah,
was a few years ago.
yeah,
I'm sick of this house, honey. Let's move. Okay,
yes.
elective moving
Yes,
is it?
moving from neighborhood to neighborhood, not really, just changing a little bit on their house style, not a whole lot. Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly what we've been missing for years.
Yep, yeah. And in situations where there's a growing family, that's I'm
Hmm.
familiar with that particular situation. So I, I think the reason I bring that up is there's always going to be a large. It's surprising the number of people that move in this country because they gotta. I mean, not because they're
Yes.
forced into it, but it's the right decision for them and their family. Like I said, divorce, job change, and stuff like that. There's a
Right.
lot of. It's a
Even
mobile
even
country.
with what we consider a higher rate environment right now, there's going to be tons of people moving in and out, just a normal, everyday business. They
Yeah,
have to. You're
yeah,
exactly
yeah.
right. There's a ton of that.
But there's a lot of decisions being made because when you're in a situation where you got to move and you just have to, that there's going to be a lot of places that you move based on the dollars. That where you would have normally moved into this one city, you're going to move farther out of town because it's cheaper or whatever.
Right.
The reason I mention that is dollars are kind of at a premium today with rates being so high. We were talking about, I didn't know how to characterize it, but I can tell you through experience, real world experience, that buyers are out there and they're buying houses every day. I mean, I think I told you we had looked at 20 or 21 homes, and I believe, except there were a few exceptions where they were clearly overpriced. They didn't sell right away, but for the rest of them, they sold within just a few days.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned, and I've talked to other agents, is if a house isn't priced pretty much on the mark, and what that means is if you price a house where it should naturally sell, it's going to sell fast for top dollar and many times multiple offers, not like it used to so much multiple offers. It used to be.
Right.
But still, if it's priced correctly in that way, you're going to get fast, top dollar, and really solid deals. But if it's overpriced, the reason for all this long spiel is it doesn't seem like buyers are gambling very much. It used to be that they would try it for $10,000 or $20,000 less. That just doesn't. I'm not seeing any gambling going on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're talking about the offers, like when they're coming in, they don't, they're not. I don't want to maybe use the term lowball, but they're less lowballing. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
They're coming in with a fair offer right off the bat and saying, "Let's,"
because it used to be if you were overpriced a little bit, somebody at least would try.
Yeah.
They would try, and I don't think anybody wants to get stuck if it's not down to that number that they need it to be. So I could be wrong. It was my perception on it. So a couple of interesting things we've got lined up for you today, several actually. And the first one is, remember we were talking about Barbara Corcoran, either it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, Rodney?
Yes.
And she was talking about, here's her take on things. She was talking about home prices going through the roof, up to and beyond 20%, which wow, if that happened,
right,
kill me now. That would be kind of dramatic on that. In this particular article, I'm sure that you saw it, they asked other real estate experts what they thought based on where she's coming from. And to give her props, when she lays out some ideas, she's generally right,
Right.
So,
yes. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying. I was saying the same thing. She's well known for not putting out preposterous information in it, and it not being accurate.
And what she said, it could go up by 20% once the rate is lowered. Now we were talking about what is that number, and could it be 6.5? Could be. Could it be 6.25? Could be. I would bet if we ever see 6% again, it's going to be Katie bar the door. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think we would definitely be would see I think it'd be a little bit lower than 6 just for it to go nuts. But I think 6 we would be moving very well.
Yeah. See, and the way you mentioned that, if it was 6 or 5.75, I don't care what you got listed, you're going to get crazy offers, and that's what I'm trying to say. People are, with the way things are, they're conservative, and that's not a bad thing, but they're just being careful, right, and that kind of stuff. I don't know why I think it's on my mind because I've just gone through it. I mean, I know what that looks like. I know what that feels like. But she explains one of the things that she had mentioned, and this is important when we have a comment that gets splashed on a headline for a countrywide consumption, and she says 20% it could go through the roof at 20%.
Yeah.
She also explains clearly that it's significant. It could vary significantly by region. right?
Yes, and that we always say that it's you know if if nobody wants to move to it, then it's not going to go up. It's going to go up 0%. You know what I'm saying? But
Hmm.
I mean, and the whole thing about her article is still the limited inventory. Like, and there are some signs that I think our inventory is increasing. So she wrote this article. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
And even since then, we have had a little bit of a tick up in inventory. So as inventory ticks up, it's going to, you know, balance this out some. But if when rates go down, we're still going to experience similar to what it was, but maybe not as bad, in my opinion. It's going to
Hmm.
get, we're going to have multiple offers. You're going to have, it's going to sit first time home buyers on the sideline. Um, and then you throw in the NAR change. And
Oh,
then mix it all up. So it's. But I think she's correct in the fact that if rates go down, it could go up significantly. And like she says, it's going to be where people want to go, which is regionalized. But I don't think it's going to hit 20%. I mean,
uh,
20%. I mean, because if rates go down, I think we're going to see a lot of the pent up demand people sell their homes and do the move too. So
there's going to be that the pent up demand idea is strong because people will. I'm telling you, the people that are ready to move are sick of waiting. They're just sick of waiting, and that's where these buyers are coming out. Like these open houses, it's really interesting. These open houses will have, I bet you, 30 people, at least in Franklin. This is Franklin and Williamson County, a pretty popular area at any rate. But open houses, just tons of interest, and then it'll sit for a few days. That's how. Normally, it would kind of be back in the day. It'd be sold that day. There'd be a
yeah,
contract as soon as they leave. But now
yeah.
you're getting 20 and 30 people come to the house, and it sits quiet for 4 or 5 days. So this one guy comes back to address Barbara Corcoran's thoughts, and he has an Airbnb management company, kind of a big deal, kind of a big company. They know what's going on. And he added some of the markets where they manage properties, they've noticed that central urban areas are experiencing plateaus like downtowns and things like that. It seems to be flattening. Suburban regions are seeing a surge, which that's still going on. It's that same rule of thumb. If you can't afford living in the city, just drive until it gets to the price that you can live with, right? And that's going on. Remote work seems to be hanging in there. What's
Mhm.
your take on remote work? Do you think that that's become a
I think
part of the
it's I
culture
think it's
now?
I think it's here to stay, but I just don't think it's at those widespread as it was. Um, I think a lot of industries are going to it, and mine as a matter of fact, there's a lot of companies that don't. Like I go into an office every day. There's a lot of companies that don't do that anymore, like in mortgage, that
Hmm.
don't have office space, and
Oh, really?
yeah, and everybody works from home, so it's
No
kind of
kidding.
wild. Yeah.
Huh?
It did, it did show the world that you can do it. Technology, like you can do it. Does it create synergy and things like that? Not always, right? You need an office to create that synergy and stuff like that. But it's, it's you can do it from home. It's just different.
Yeah. And you've got to find that there's some people that can do it and be, let's just call it what it is, to be that they'll actually do the work. I'm looking for
You
a
need
word, can't seem to
adults.
find.
You need
Something like that.
adults to go to work. I mean, if you're going to work from home, you have to pretty much be an adult.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
That can be responsible for your time.
yeah, yeah. Because I know that, but there's some companies, and there's some people that I'm working with now that he does remote. He does remote, but he has to go into the office from time to time. So it's not like for some companies you can't live in Nashville and the company's based out of Denver. Unless you fly in. It can be
Right,
remote
right.
mostly, but you still have to cruise into the office a couple of days a week, which synergy, energy, that kind of stuff keeps things going. But
Yeah.
this next guy. And the reason I mention that is that has a direct effect on when people are buying like let's say, closer out of town a little bit, like Spring Hill, Thompson Station, little burgs like that. For us, that's south of town, 12 miles or so. This other person, Brett Johnson is his name, he chimes in on what Barbara says. And he said, when interest rates drop, it typically spurs an increase in housing demand. No question about that. Lower rates make mortgages more affordable. It's a given, attracting buyers to enter the market. Then, yes, the buyers who were hesitant before suddenly finding themselves with increased purchase power. I thought that was interesting. And that's part of what gets people to jump, I think, because we've seen if rates go down a little bit, if you could afford 500, but now you can afford 580, for example, whatever the case may be, that gets people's juices flowing.
It does. Yeah. Because for the last 2 years, we've been talking about what are their settlements right now, Andy? What have they been settling on? Size and location. You've said it a couple of times already. You drive so you can afford it. Now they don't have to drive as far, right? They drive 5 miles instead of 12 miles or whatever. And that's, it may be a huge difference for them.
Yeah. But here's the other thing too. If you're actively searching for, hey, she had a question. Sorry, Angie, I'll get to you in just a second. One thing that if you're actively looking for a house, and I'm going to make this number up because why not? If it's 500 and all of a sudden your budget goes to 575, the difference in the quality of the house from 500 to 575, once you've looked at 10 $500,000 houses in a row, it's pretty significant. It is pretty significant. And so when rates change and people see that bump, they're like, I like that,
Yes.
Let's see what Ange has going on here. Is it better to have an open house and showings and have a set future date for accepting offers? I know where you're going with this. Okay. Rodney, any thoughts?
I think it would be if you knew the house was going to attract that kind of attention. But in today's environment, I think the traditional thing is the way I would go, meaning I would list it and work the offers out as they come, because I don't think that you're reaching. I don't think every house right off the bat is getting all those offers unless it's priced right and all this other stuff, and it's So no, I wouldn't if it were me. But I'm not the real estate agent.
Okay. So here's going to be my take on this. What you'll see a lot of times, this was prevalent a couple of years ago, where somebody would list a house. It was hotter than a firecracker, and you'd put in there, offers to be accepted through Sunday night, will be presented to seller on Monday morning. We'll have an answer by Monday afternoon. Now, since the market and that I'm telling you that worked, and the reason they did that was because people were getting 5 or 10 or 12 offers, or 4 or 13 or whatever the number is, but a lot of offers, and it stops that one offer that comes in and says, I'll give you 6 hours to make a decision, because agents, myself included, will try to leverage short time for a better deal. It's a bird in the hand kind of mentality. And I'm telling you that works. But when something like that is offered in a listing, like what you're talking about, Angie, then you've got this stack of offers, and the seller gets to pick anyone they want. They don't have there's nothing to do with chronology or anything. It doesn't even have to be the highest price. It can be the most favorable terms. And they get to pick anyone they want. And they can either accept it or they can counter back with that person. They can even do that. But the one requirement is you've got to get multiple offers. You got to have people sending in offers. Because if you don't, and it's all there for the world to see, that it all of a sudden stays on the market, for anybody that was paying attention, they knew that no offers came in. and so that can kind of hurt you a little bit. That's what we call getting snake bit. You're and that's happened this last year or so that people were trying to. I know, hey Philip, that's why it's kind of a good, kind of a good technique because of that. Um, but as the market has cooled down, you can see, yeah, and you can see where people would try to do that. They expect multiple offers and they didn't come, and then the agent's got to go to the seller and go, that didn't work. So I'm agreeing with Rodney in this. Is when you list, just let the offers flow in naturally. That's going to be my take on that. And then, and here's what Philip had to say. As a buyer, the set time ticks me off, and we have had people accept early or ignore it and keep the house open. I know. I'm telling you, that's what I call putting a short string on it. If you put a short string on it, it gets everybody's attention, and especially if it's a good offer, So it's a technique.
Yeah, I mean that's I mean it's just kind of what the market's dictating right now. Not every house is getting multiple offers, so it probably wouldn't be the wisest to do it that way. But
what I have found is in this, typically I find this to be pretty effective. If you're working with a buyer that sees some houses that they kind of like, I mean, you can, after a while, you can get a sense of it.
Right.
Here's what I'll say is let's go look at these things early in the day, like 10 o'clock. We'll go look at 2 or 3 of them. We're done by noon, 1 o'clock. If they decide to make an offer, then we'll write an offer pretty quick, because it only takes a few minutes to write it up. But I will put a deadline of like 8 p.m. So they got 7 or 8 hours. Because what I resist is going, tomorrow at noon's fine. You do that, and anybody's just kind of lollygagging along can shoot in an offer overnight. And that's what I try to avoid. Just kind of telling you some of my tricks.
I like it. Plus, it keeps that noon from dragging out to 2:30.
It does that.
It
does that. Anyway, so just a final thought on the Barbara thing. What these guys are saying is they can't help but agree with what she says because she's been right most of the time. But this guy finishes, and it's a pretty good thought. Nevertheless, he said it's important to recognize that while lower rates can push prices up, it can because it lowers inventory, they do not always ensure growth. Market conditions, economic factors, and local dynamics all play roles. Therefore, while I agree with Barbara's viewpoint, through analysis and understanding the market are crucial for both investors and homebuyers. What he's saying is rates isn't the only game in town. I mean, gosh, that's so true. It's certainly true around here,
Yeah.
I'm telling you. So, just good. Moving on. So here's the next one. Did you have any final thoughts on Barbara, Rodney?
No, I like her. I like her. I think she's right on the money. First of all, anybody is she's kind of the king in New York real estate. So, or queen of New York real estate. I don't want to mislabel her there, but she is the boss of New York real estate. So her opinion is. But I don't really think I think the 20% is a little sensational. If we've seen 7 or 8%, I think that would be a skyrocket number of what we're expected to see this year.
Yeah, 20% would get everybody's attention. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't imagine it.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine $200,000 at 6.5% right now? If it goes up 20% on $1 million house, it goes from $200,000. $500,000 goes to $600,000.
Oh man!
Another $700, $800 a month.
Things would come to a screeching halt. That's my take on that. Angie has another good question. I want to stay on with these. Is it reasonable option to ask to rent back the house for 1 to 2 months after closing, or does that put the buyer off? Here's the deal on that, flat out. When you do a rent back, you have to do, I think that 60 days is the maximum that you can do that after you've purchased a house. It may be different from state to state, but I think in Tennessee anyway, 60 days is the max that they'll allow for that. But here's what it does. It complicates things in a couple of ways. Naturally, you're going to expect to have the home inspected again. They're going to charge you their market rate for rent, not what you're used to for mortgage, right? And then the insurance becomes a thing because you're living there, so you've got to sort all that out. So the short answer to your question, is it doable for the right people? It absolutely is. But with that kind of a bargain, the buyers are going to be asking you for a premium. You're not going to be getting top dollar by asking for that rent back, if that makes sense. Because anytime you do a favor for the other side, they expect to be compensated in one way or another.
And keep in mind, if you buy it conventional, you have to move into it within 60. You have to occupy the property within 60 days as your primary residence. So you can rent it back a little bit, but you can't. You've got to be moving into that pretty quickly.
Yep. So that is a layer of complication that I always try to avoid at all costs. And that is up to and including, well, here's a question you'll get when somebody buys a house. And it's, paying over $5,000 for it is absolutely nuts. But here's another question that people will ask, and it's common, and it's the same thing. If I was buying a house, I'd say, hey, we're buying it anyway. Can I move some of my stuff into your garage before we get there, before we buy it? I'm telling you, just don't.
Yeah.
It's not a rule of thumb. It's a rule. Don't.
That was when I worked a lot with new construction early in my career, and I'm telling you, soon as I'd worked with a builder that said, "Here's my rule: absolutely nobody moves in anywhere until the house is closed. It is the best policy to have." Just the ones you don't think something bad's going to happen. Somebody loses a job. And boom, and here we go moving out, and that's a nightmare. And it's only happened a couple times, but I'm like, I avoid it like the plague too. I'm like,
I just don't.
Please, it's just a mess to get in. It could create a mess, but most people avoid it.
Yeah. Now, my answer to that is get pods. Use pods, not moving guys. Pods, because you've got a unit you can move around, and keep it your driveway till you're closed, and then you get out of there. Here's Angie continuing in the vein. It's really hard organizing when you have no place to go or when. This is where I have the conversation with people about what I call Plan B. When you're buying and selling a house, if you don't, pods are some version of that. But a Plan B, meaning someplace that you can go camp out when your place is closed, if you don't have someplace to go, can make you thousands of dollars. I'm telling you. Just have a Plan B. If it's family, if it's renting a hotel room, whatever, have someplace that you go if you need to. That the goal is to not use it. But if you have it, then you'll be okay. And the reason I mention that is in the midst of negotiations, if somebody wants to buy your house and you're counting on buying a house next, and that doesn't come together, they still want to move into your place. And it's hard to negotiate against that. It's just, well, we'll sell you ours, but if we don't find a house, then you can't come in. All of a sudden, you're asking for something that's like a favor. They're going to want to be compensated. Don't ask for favors from people. Just don't. You'll lose money. That makes sense, or was that confusing, Rodney?
No,
It,
makes perfect sense.
yeah.
And that's why we do, on my side, we work with things like home equity line of credits, bridge loans. We do, if you can buy before you sell, that's obviously the best plan. You get all the time in the world to move, and then you get to sell your house and stage it and all that stuff. So a lot of people like to buy before they move, and I'll kind of goes back to that story we are talking about where people were getting a little bit more aggressive and like they're heading towards liking the rates, adjusting to the rates more.
Yes.
So I'm finding a lot of people right now are going, I don't care, I don't, I'm going to carry, I want to carry both notes. I want to carry, figure out a way I can buy without selling. And that hasn't happened very much lately, but they're doing a lot of that now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that brings us to our next topic is yeah, I got you. I understand, Angie. You got you. Yeah, renting sometimes short term is the solution. For what it'll cost you in rent, you'll make up in what you can charge in your house. I'm telling you that big time. But with the next topic on here is the consumers are getting used to the rates. I'm starting to see that. And I bring back the example of the 20 houses that we looked at, and all of them are sold. People are getting used to the rates. And
mhm.
golly, let's see what we got here. Yes, consumers are becoming more pessimistic about mortgage rates. Naturally, that's going to happen. But they're also more likely to adapt in order to buy a home. It's we got to move. We're sick of waiting. Here's what it says. This is just a super short article. In the first monthly decline since November, mostly because, it was April 9th, because 34% of consumers believe that mortgage interest rates will go up the next 12 months. Probably right. That's up from 32% in February, and a higher percentage who think rates will go down, 29%. It's going to do both. We've just seen that, right? Despite their mortgage rates moodiness, consumer perceptions about home buying and selling conditions are slightly improved. I think
That's
it's
pretty
because of
cool.
duration.
Yeah, think about that. Think about what you just said there. They know the rates are probably getting worse, or at least a third of people thinking that. But
Mm-hmm.
yet the overall index is pretty good. Like they're still considering buying or in the market. I thought that was
Yes.
good news that, hey, we know it's probably getting worse, but we're still in the fight with this thing. We're still going to try to buy a house.
Yep. And I think it's a duration thing.
Yeah.
It's when we look at your graphs, if it comes down slowly without, a precipitous drop, I don't think that would be it. That wouldn't help us if there was a precipitous drop, because then everybody's going, wait, it could drop further, you know? But if it's slow,
I don't know. I think
you
I
know,
think when
no.
it gets down there, there's going to be a bunch of people getting on it.
Well, I mean, it's got to get down there and stay is kind of my point,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
long enough for them to find a house.
Long enough to find a house and lock it in, I don't know. Oh man. All right. So here's the bottom line on it. People are getting used to it. People are still buying houses. Consumer expectations are currently mirroring the mortgage rate reality. Mortgage News Daily puts the average rate at 7.11. Look at that. It's exactly what it is today for me. The highest level since mid-February. Last week's hotter than expected jobs report made it less likely that Feds, sorry, that was plural. My apologies, Philip. Sorry, the Fed.
Well,
Less likely the
technically, you're right. There is a committee of. There's only one Fed chairman, but there is a committee of Fed chairpersons that put their 2 cents in.
yeah, but Philip's really smart, and I'm
Yeah,
not wrestling him. I'm gonna stick with Fed.
you're just gonna stick with your correction. Nice job, Philip.
um, Less likely a Fed will start to cut rates in June. I completely agree with that. Do you?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know. I think there's a possibility still.
Is that? Look at this. There's the creepy thing. Hang on. Bear with me. Tennessee and locked up on me. Okay, here we go. So let's just assume the Fed is not going to cut rates in June. That's all I'm saying. June. I didn't say this year, but this June.
Yeah.
I will jump back to that. Do you agree with that?
No, yeah, June. I'm just saying I'm not ruling it out so far. I mean, if we got a couple really bad news, you know, there's stuff that could happen. Probably not. I mean, I don't think so, but I don't think it's
Okay.
out of the realm of possibility.
Okay. Well, let me put my betting shoes on.
It's a long shot. I'm just saying it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Did you see this? Oh man. Gosh, do I feel? Oh yikes! Oh Jesus! Okay. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Listen, hey, listen. If they want to pick on me, they could listen. My English is awful. I was born in Kingsport, and raised in Nashville since I was 9. So, yeah, they could have a field day with the Queen's English in my dictionary, right?
I'm trying. I caught myself. I'm trying. Rodney is cautiously optimistic. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So here we've got a couple of we've got news from our hometown, meaning Williamson County. Rodney, I think this is a pretty cool article. You want to kick us off on this one?
Sure. I seen this at the Tennessee in our local paper. It starts out with while growing cities like Nashville offer easy access to recreation, nightlife, dining, they can prove more expensive than their smaller counterparts. In recent years, more residents have found forced to left Nashville and settle in surrounding areas. So they mentioned the 2023 Wallet Hub released its 2023 Best Small Cities in America report, with Brentwood and Franklin making the top 20. Among cities like Portland, Maine, Redmond, Washington, Brentwood claimed the number 3 spot, Brentwood, Tennessee. And I think, Andy, is that your official address? And then Franklin came in at number 19.
Yes, it is. My official address is indeed Brentwood.
Now, the thing I like about the article is they mentioned our city, a couple cities in the county we live in, but it says the cost of living tends to be lower in a small city compared to a large city. And so that's why they come up with some cities outside of Nashville to do that. But I'm going to guess that Brentwood and Franklin probably doubles or triples the median sales price in those areas. But
easily tripled. And I actually had a note. I've got this kind of cool software that allows me to summarize in a note about that. And I thought that the author of this article looks like a lovely person, but they live here, apparently, here in the Nashville area. I'm betting that these top 20 small cities to live in are fairly well-to-do. That's kind of my guess.
Yeah, I'm just like, but when the article starts out, the cost tends to be lower, and it says top 20 small cities to live in. I get it. Like it's always been one of the best cities to live in. Yep. But maybe not in the affordability article, right? That was
perhaps.
And I don't want to tell on myself, but at the bottom of that Barbara Corcoran article, it actually had Tennessee as here are the top 5 states where homes were most overvalued according to Fitch ratings, with home prices data obtained from Redfin. Tennessee was 6.2%, plus 6.2%, which made it one of these cities that were overrated or whatever, or overpriced, overvalued. So if you're listening, don't listen to a word we say about these articles, because we're contradicting ourselves I mean, what do you do? The articles are there. So, but I'll tell you this: Brentwood and Franklin are a wonderful place to live, as a lot of cities across our country, and
Yeah.
they are less populated. They are, when you go away from downtown, you miss a lot of that traffic and all that nonsense. Although they may not have the exact cities correct, but they are correct. You just go away from downtown a little bit, and you'll get a better bang for your buck.
Yep. So, yay for Brentwood, yay for Franklin. We are cool big cities. Now, here we're going to
Yeah.
finish up. Thank you for that article, Rodney. Thanks for taking the lead on that. I'm ready to dive into this next one, and we may have to. This may grow legs into next week because this is such a good article, and we're actually kind of running short. So I'm going to go kind of quick. But we're going to dip back into the NAR thing because it just has to be. The things that are going on still to this, there's just so much change going on, even though yet, I've got to be clear. I don't want to confuse anybody. Nothing has changed fundamentally currently. Everything is as it was. But on August 17th, that is now the date when things take effect, is August 17th, when the rules change. But behind the scenes, the conversations that are being had, the documentation that's being prepared, the mental mindset of real estate professionals across the country, there's a lot going on. But this particular article, it's got some flaws in it, don't we all? But here's the topic, and it says, our first-time homebuyer is the big loser in the NAR settlement. And I think that I have an opinion on that I think that the chances are that's going to be true. Do you agree with that, Rodney, or not?
I agree some, but I'm coming from a different spot, and I'll let you go first, and I'll explain what I mean after you go. I'm coming from a different spot, but I think it could affect first-time homebuyers, but I don't think it's going to affect them like this article is talking about. I think this article is off on the basis of why first-time home buyers. I think they just forget one very important factor in this whole thing. But I do love how this starts. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump in. I want to read this part, and it says it's also the most talking about the lawsuit and the structure of this. It says it's also the most opaque and complicated agreement I've ever encountered. The reason is that its premise is so simple and understandable, and its execution is so dependent on a wide range of human behavioral factors and multifaceted outcomes, meaning that it's so simple. Like they said, okay, it only affects two little things here, right? MLS and the
written agreements.
The written agreements. So that is very simple, is what he's saying. But the countless number of human things that's going to be thrown in, and what I call the chickens, that is going to turn this thing into something that people are expecting it to turn into something, but business is going to overrule. I think business is business. Buyers want to buy, sellers want to sell. This thing will prevail. I mean, it's not going to be doom and gloom like this guy. I think I don't say he's doom and gloom, but man, he paints a nasty picture for first time home buyers and everybody. But that's the way I feel about it.
Okay, so let me touch on a couple of things. And this, I can't help but get passionate about this because I agree with one of the first sentences that he said. He said, I've dealt with a lot of complex issues that have underscored the fact that the law of unintended consequences is never repealed. And in that case, I don't care where you're coming from. They've revealed the people that started this lawsuit. I understand the reason. I really do understand the reason the people brought the lawsuit in the first place. Is it misguided? I think they've maybe gone too far, whatever. But it's gone through court. It's been approved. I think not fully approved. They're waiting for full approval. I'm looking for a word while I'm talking. I can't think of it. Tentatively approved, perhaps. But but this lawsuit, they can't list out all the unintended consequences. And I think that low income buyers, first time home buyers, all that is going to fall in that category. So here's who are the winners and losers based on this NAR thing. What appears to be clear is the most of the positive outcomes will be awarded to wealthy, financially sophisticated consumers, cash buyers maybe, easily those that have 840 credit scores, that kind of stuff. It's like, no problem. Who are multi-generational owners. The lawyers will benefit. The National Association of Realtors, as much as it's cost them, it's kept them from going bankrupt, because initially it was like $5.8 billion, which would have sunk them completely. So 400 million is survivable, right? The biggest losers, and this is just this gentleman, David Dworkin. The biggest losers, however, will be low and moderate income first-time and especially first-generation homebuyers already confused by an often Byzantine, don't even know what that means, process tied directly to their financial future. As opposed to the way it was, and we've said this before, and now with this happening, I never realized how fair it was. A level playing field before. It really was.
Yes. The article goes on to talk about how it's going to be challenging for a first-time home buyer to come up with extra money to pay the realtor fees. Mm-hmm. And that's what everybody keeps saying. And here's what I say. It's not going to be a challenge. They don't have it now, and they're not going to have it tomorrow. They haven't had it yesterday, and they're not going to have it again tomorrow.
Okay.
You do not need if people are looking to be paid out of a borrower's pocket, it's not going to happen. They do not have the money.
Right.
I mean, that's just plain and simple. And the ones who do have it, I'm not sure are going to want to pay it. Like, it needs to be like, just like for me, if I was buying, I would want that negotiated in the deal of the home. I don't want to buy a home and come out with another $30, whatever $1,000 it would be on top of my down payment and all that stuff.
Right.
And I think a lot of consumers are like that.
I agree 100%. I agree.
So I think the first time home buyers racket is going to be, I'm going to go straight to the listing agent if I want to buy this house, or the buyer's agents are going to sell their, figure out a way to intelligently articulate what they do, because they need it, right? The first time home buyers need it. I'm just saying they might not get it, because that's where I think the danger might come in, is they're going to learn to go straight to the listing agent and buy this house. And that's the thing, is the whole article talks about, well, they're not going to be able to purchase. They're not going to be able to buy. It's going to keep them from buying. No, it's not going to keep them from buying. It's just going to cut out part of the party that has to be paid cash. In my opinion, that's what's going to happen. But they lose representation that way, and that's where I feel like they will get hurt in the end, is if they don't have representation.
That, and we've talked about that before, that if somebody really wants a house, and I think for the most part, unless somebody that's bought a house more than a few times, they don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. And some people think that we're like this smoke and mirrors, and it's like it's not that difficult. The fact of the matter is, what goes on behind the scenes is incredibly complex, and it's emotionally charged. And I think that most people don't either give credit where credit is due, or just certainly don't understand the process, And it's easy for them to go, well, I'll just go do it myself. And
Well,
realize once you get in there that there's more to it than you thought. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah. See, I don't know if they want to do it themselves, but I think the narrative's going to become if you're not educated about it, or if you don't educate yourself about it, or you don't try to learn about, because this is difficult to understand. Like I had an argument with another LO that's been in the business for 20 years on who pays that commission. And everybody always says, well, it's the realtor that splits that commission. I'm like, but
No,
it's
it's not.
coming from the seller. Like, so even 20-year veterans have, a difference in opinion of kind of where that money's come from. It's just the words. But I think I think the narrative will turn to, if not spoken properly, like you just need to go to the person listing the house, or this other person's going to try to charge you money if it's not done properly.
Hmm. I,
I mean,
but
if you
but your
don't
point.
know,
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
but I mean, if you don't know the ins and outs of how it works, and I just don't know how simply it's going to be put with somebody, on the street that wants to go buy a first time home buyer house, how a family will say, well, how they're going to describe the real estate interaction with a buyer, now.
Yeah. I hate to. I don't want to press this. I'm going to save this. Never done this before, but I'm going to save the balance of this for next week, because there's going to be more stuff between now and then, to balance out the show. But I think is it okay if I stretch this into
Oh
next
yeah,
week and just
100%. I mean, like I've said, this NAR article is going to be this is our life for a while. I mean, just like this guy come out with his interpretation of it, which is I love your point of unintended consequences. I can sit here and say, of course I've got a crystal ball, and I'll even show you to it looks like a little golf ball.
nice?
And I look into this thing all the time, and it tells me what stuff's going to happen, but occasionally it's wrong. So who knows?
It does look like a golf ball, though. Wait a minute. Are you trying to? Hey, I did want to kind of put a bow on this. The balance. The thing here's the funny thing about real estate, and I think it's probably the case in a lot of businesses, but I only know real estate. As a professional, as a realtor specifically, I've got ethics that I have to uphold. And that means even if I don't get paid for helping somebody, I need to help those people to the best of my ability, to their benefit, period. My results, my benefit doesn't even come into it's not even part of it. That's part of the ethics of being a realtor. And so you're putting this squeeze of you got to make a living, but your number one goal has to be to help people to their best benefit. You're their fiduciary. They're more important than you are. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. And what I'm seeing, the unintended consequences, I have strong feelings about that. I don't like being in that twist of trying to make a living, but still having to have that fiduciary responsibility. That's a squirrely place to be, but I'll do it all day to help those people. But is everybody going to do that? I don't know. Is that where a lot of complications are going to come from? I don't know. If people if they want a house and they don't have the $15,000 to spend for a buyer's agent, are they going to go to the listing agent? Probably, maybe. The chance that they're going to not be represented, to your point, is much higher than it was a year ago when people errantly said, buyer's agency, it doesn't cost anything. It does. It absolutely does, but just not directly, right?
Right.
That's the way that worked. And that's the unintended consequence of people wanting a house but not being represented correctly. And for those of you that think that this is a piece of cake, that you think that, let's go through the numbers of realtors that are leaving the industry even as we speak. People wouldn't be quitting it if it was a piece of cake.
Yeah, if somebody just thinks that they want to go through one, just all they have to do is go through a loan process with me on one. We can just go through a loan process together, and they'll see how difficult it is with all that paperwork, and they'll be like, "Ooh, I don't want to do that." But
and then add the emotions in there, because emotions tend to get large with this kind of stuff. Oh man. I think, and he also, I guess I'll save that for I so want to, we could just, I'm passionate about this. This makes a difference to me. We'll get through it. But some people are going to pay the price. They're just, and I was almost going to say that didn't need to. I don't know how to categorize that, but there's going to be fallout from this, and that is part of the process of what you said, and I believe wholeheartedly with you, Rodney. Is it is a business, it's capitalism, and it will work itself out. On the other end, a year from now, it will have come to some methodology that will work for everybody. But in the meantime, it's that sausage thing. There's going to be a lot of sausage being made.
by 10 million different sausage makers.
By 10 million, yeah, you bet. There's going to a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of people. I think the potential for a lot of people getting hurt is going to be fairly high. I don't want that to happen, but I think that's the nature of getting through it. You think?
I'm with you.
Okay. Well,
I'll give you my final thought early on this.
Okay.
Is that I believe, with all of this going on, here's what I truly believe. Let's say I have you and I have a listing agent on the other side listing, and you're conversing with that listing agent. No matter with these new rules, I am 1,000,000% confident that you and that other agent can get a deal done. Like, we just got to get there. Meaning you've got to talk, you got to get your buyer, you got to get into the process and talk about this, and it's going to work itself out. There's no way, if you have a buyer that wants to buy this house with two agents involved and a seller that wants to sell it, they've always put deals together. Mm-hmm. I don't care what new rule they come up with. That's what y'all do. Y'all put deals together. Lenders try to make it happen too. It's going to happen. I mean, it's going to definitely be a change. There's a lot of unintended consequences that we're not going to see and we don't realize, and everybody's speculating about them. But I believe we're going to be good. I believe we're in good hands.
I think that the free market will do just fine. So, man, I get so pumped up about that. I mean, so pumped up about it. I was talking to my broker about it this morning, and geez Louise. Anyway, Angie, it's so good to see you. You're going to do just fine. Have that. I'm telling you, that Plan B idea has worked for a long time for me. It really has. Philip, Wendy, checkbox. But I caught myself, but still, I did slip on that.
Add that check.
Add the check. I know. I'm getting better. Rodney, any final thoughts, buddy?
I done gave it to you. That was my final thought. Yeah.
See that's how I roll. So listen, everybody, have a great week. See you next Tuesday. Take care.
All right. See y'all.
See you. Bye. Oh man. Oh. Wait.